All right. Welcome, Dan. Good conversation today.
Oh yeah, fun one. It's deer season, right? All deer.
Oh, it is, man. I just got mule deer on my brain, and we'll be headed back here shortly to keep after those things and kind of close out my season. So yeah, it just made for a great conversation as it's so present for both me and you that have been out hunting a bunch in November here.
Yeah, a lot of days in the field. That's what it's all about. Looking over a lot of deer. Yeah, we talked about kind of some updates of the status of mule deer in Wyoming too, and kind of what we're seeing out there. And we kind of went down the rabbit trail of tactics and optics, and probably just a good all around mule deer hunting podcast.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, exactly. So we want to thank a couple sponsors for today's show. So we want to thank Eberly Stock Packs. Got that new mod frame, that new Brooks 7,000 cubic inch bag. Man, that thing's been working good for me all season backpacking. It's been so nice to have that pack that really carries the weight well. I can get it on my hip belt. The hip belt's really well padded, the shoulders, and really get that load to ride right on that pack. So yeah, that thing's been a game changer for me.
Yeah, and that soft meat shelf on that thing too has been awesome. We put a whole whitetail deer in it 3 days ago. My camera guy Tim, he shot a whitetail with a rifle, but yeah, put the whole deer in it. We did bone out besides the two hind quarters, and that thing's so slick. It carries meat so easy, and then that bag just straps on over the top, and out you go. So just a freaking slick system.
Yeah. Oh man, you're right. Yeah. My daughter killed one the other day. And so yeah, I left bone in and took it. So pretty heavy load going out. And yeah, man, it just carried it like a breeze. It's such a nice pack, and that 7,000 cubic inch Brooks bag is really good for backpacking. I've had a ton of room in it, especially as I get into late season and I've got to bring all this clothing and gear and sleeping bags and tent and stove, and I'm able to get it all in there. So yeah, it's been great for me.
Yep. Yeah. But I've been running a lot with the 3,500 as well, just for the day hunts, right? So I've been doing some truck hunting and day hunting. So 3,500 cubic inch bag for the not the expedition type of a hunt.
Oh, that's killer, man. Yep. And they also have a bunch of different packs that you can check out for every different use. Me and Dan also use the free fall as a day pack. Use that a bit if I'm truck hunting, something like that. And then, yeah, also check out their fanny packs as well. They've got some good ones, and you can use them for a stalking pack, also like fly fishing, trail running, and they're also concealed carry, so I can fit my pistol in there when I'm running trails. I just use that thing all the time.
Yeah. The Bando bag. Those things are sweet.
Yeah, they are sweet. Yep. So thanks to Eberly Stock for their support of the podcast. Also want to thank Matthews. You've already got some use out of this bow, man. You shot a couple bowls out of this new arc.
Yeah. The arc, it's too easy, Brian, these days. These bows shoot so well, and it's so easy to transition from one to the other. And I get a couple comments of like, the Lift X was unbelievable too. I shot that bow really well. But like, guys asked, don't you get like kind of tired of having to switch, from bow to bow? Because, once you get one shooting, you shoot it so well, and then it's time to switch. And it's like, honestly, nowadays, I don't even think about it because they all shoot so well, and the technology is there, and the tunability is so easy, with that limb shift technology, that it's at the user's helm to attain perfection right there at the range in a matter of a few minutes. So incredibly easy to do. So yeah, as you can tell by my response there, nah, no problem switching from bow to bow because it's just so easy nowadays.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I'm getting a ton of performance, which with my 26 and a half inch draw really helps. I mean, the buck I killed this year, I mean, shot through the shoulder to get to the heart. It's like I can't always do that with bows, or I couldn't always do that before, but just getting a ton of performance and a ton of confidence in my arrow setup, and able to put it through there and kill that buck. And so yeah, it's the performance on this new arc is amazing. And then, dude, this thing just holds so money for me. And I get asked the same question, Dan, and if I mind changing bows, but every year is my new favorite bow. And I'm not just saying that. It's like every year is an improvement on last year's. And I didn't think it could get any better than that Lift X. I love that bow. but the arc did it. It's like, man, that thing just holds on target so well. It's so forgiving. And then just the not only the forgiveness, but the when I loose an arrow, there's just like no shock or vibration into that riser. It's like noticeable. It's just an amazing bow, man. I'm so happy with this thing.
Yeah, and I get it. New bows are expensive, but at least go try it. I mean, maybe you're not in the market for a brand new bow this year, but I would say guys just need to experience it to maybe just show them what they're missing out on, maybe depending if they, how old their bow is. But you'll definitely, as you just illustrated, you're going to notice a big difference.
Yeah, and I especially think, if you've got a bow that's 3 to 5 years, the jump is
Yeah.
absolutely amazing, and so these bows, they hold together so well and hold a tune from season to season, so you really can use them for multiple seasons. But yeah, this new one, man, they hit the mark on this thing. So if you're interested in a new bow, go shoot this one, go try it out. Amazing job by Matthews, and thanks to their support of the podcast.
Yep.
Yep. So over Eastman's, man, we've been busy. I've been getting my articles out and on time, but just barely. I've been hunting so much lately.
Yeah, same here. I'm a little bit behind. Some of my stuff was due today, but talked to Todd and he's like, "Yeah, you can get it into me tomorrow." It's like, perfect. Tomorrow it is.
Yeah, well, you're working the same deals I am to get my stuff turned in, but a bunch of great articles coming out of the magazine. I always love reading your articles. Such great insight into Western hunting, and yeah, and all the subscriber stories as well. I love reading about guys that beat the odds, and there's just some really good hunting out there, and the magazine is proof of that when you can see some of these mind-blowing trophies coming out of different spots.
Yeah, and that's what Eastman's Hunting Journals has done for 38 years, is share subscriber stories, and we see success, and give you a little bit of inspiration and a little knowledge, is what we try to do with our tips and tactics articles and our gearing up articles. So yeah, it's a great variety for the hunter, young and old. I don't, to check it out as a resource. And there's nothing like holding on to something physical like a print magazine. I know it's kind of a thing of the past-ish, but for me, I guess I'm not really that old of a soul, but I like to hold on to something physical and read it still.
Well, knowledge is power. And so, knowledge is such a huge component of consistent success. And you can definitely glean some knowledge from the magazines. You can also glean knowledge from the Deer Collective, Elk Collective. Dan runs both of those programs. We both contribute to both of those programs. They're great to further your learning curve into hunting mule deer, into hunting elk, and just another great resource that guys can take advantage of through Eastman's.
Yep, and we're running bundles with them now. We're into our Christmas season too and Black Friday, so make sure you check out eastmans.com. This will probably be released after Black Friday, but we'll be running stuff all the way through Christmas. So yeah, make sure you check out deals there at eastmans.com and all the other podcasts, the Eastman's Hunting Journals podcast that we have rolling. And yeah, I was going to say Beyond the Grid, we're kind of wrapping up our season here for Beyond the Grid, and as we gather new content from 2025 for 2026, we're in good shape for another epic 2026 of releases. So I'm excited about that too.
Oh, dude, I can't wait. My hunts are just absolutely grinders. I don't know how we're ever going to get them edited down to 25 minutes. There's like so much footage there and so much that went on. But yeah, really proud of the couple films that I turned in. And I know you turned in a handful of good ones, some really good elk hunts. So yeah, man, it's going to be fun to see it come out in 26.
Yep, lots of awesome content.
Yep, cool. All right, well, you're the man. Great podcast. Let's get into it.
Yeah, buddy, sounds good.
Okay. Hey, what's happening, Dan?
Hey, how are you? Yeah, it's good to be back.
Yeah, no doubt. Man, it's been a busy hunting season. We've been out a bunch. Yeah, it's been a super busy November for me, which is good. A lot of days of field and a lot of windshield time driving, but man, it's been fun.
Yeah, same for me. Lots of windshield time for sure, and behind the glass, and lots of days behind the glass. That's for sure. And finding deer for me, I mean, I don't know what you've been into, the particulars anyway, but yeah, it's been hard to find a mature buck out here in Wyoming. These desert units, it's just been a struggle.
Man, It's rough. It's a lot of time behind glass and can get frustrating at times, especially when you're turning up deer, smaller bucks, and you just can't find that next age class that you're looking for. Yeah, it's like glass till your eyes bleed, but you can't make them be there, you know?
Yeah, yeah, that's ultimately what it is you can't make them be there. Like I told Ike and my camera guy, we're looking in the right places, we're glassing at the right times during the day. We're finding deer. We're not finding a lot of deer, out in this desert unit that I was hunting in Wyoming, but finding deer and finding 2 points rutting the does, and that's it. And you think about it, you're like, okay, of all the times of the year that you're going to get a mature buck to step out and be vulnerable, it's right now during the peak of the rut when these doe, I mean, they're chasing hard. No doubt these does are coming into estrus, but the mature bucks just weren't showing up. They're just, and maybe you're right. They just don't exist out there. And there's a lot of information out there, guys finding dead deer and with CWD, EHD, blue tongue, all these different things that factor in. And specifically on the Graybull River corridor just south of us here, with a 50% positive rate of CWD, which is crazy. And I think over time that just has an effect on the mature deer.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I sure. I've had some great hunting this November. Man, some of these bucks have sure taught me some lessons about mature bucks in the rut. And it is crazy. If they're not there, you're not going to see them. And that's been the case in Montana. And sad to say, like, I found out that they're not adopting any of those regulations from the Special Mule Deer Advisory Council from last year that they advised that seasons are status quo and numbers are way down. And not that you can't still find a mature buck here in Montana. I did find one early on, but yeah, and I've seen some 3 and 4 points and just been able to pass them. So kind of that same similar thing. But man, in other places, the rut has me like a bit crazy, kind of like those big mature mule deer, where I'll look at a spot and I'll glass it, and there'll be some smaller bucks rutting the does and don't see any mature ones. But good numbers of does. And then, they like started rutting fairly early in November and then came into a lull in the rut about the 2nd to the 7th. Little weather and little cold came in, and I knew this was like a solid vantage point, and I'd seen one shooter in there. So I was kind of looking for that buck with big backs, and he was an older deer. And all of a sudden, the 8th, it just went wild, where I saw like 4 big shooters that showed up in there. One big sticker buck and another 3x4, that buck with big backs. And then saw this like really old, mature, like older buck show up with like kind of like lopsided forks, like a front on one side and a back on the other side. But he was just so tall and so heavy. It was like, man, that's an older deer. I'd shoot that thing. And all of a sudden, they just showed up and then went absolutely crazy that day, searching draws for deer and doing what mule deer do. And then on this latest hunt, gosh, so wild, man. I found like a really good solid buck with great forks. And he actually crossed in bow range of me at daybreak. I was like on the X, like the spot I chose to glass. He walked by in like the twilight, like right there by me in bow range. And he was just right over the hill and he was rutting a doe, but he pretty much left all the other does. And so I slipped down below me. He like disappeared over a ledge and just slipped down to throw an arrow at him as soon as the lights came on. And I just seen him a couple minutes before, and that buck was gone. And I actually found him, a day later. I saw him on the top of the ridge, but he was getting in there and rutting does in the dark and then leaving at absolute first light and leaving all those does not rutting with him and then disappearing into this deep, dark timber by himself, which was totally wild because we were talking like the 16th of November, the 17th of November, the peak. So just some crazy happenings. I have another big, like a bunch of stories to share with you, but it's just wild what some of those big, older, mature deer, like they sure know when to rut and when not to.
Yeah, and that's what you're looking for, right? You're looking for these time periods where you're getting estrus and that you're in the right time and hopefully in the right places to catch these mature deer. in daylight hours because they are so smart and they are so stealthy with how they move. And especially mature deer, I mean, they don't get to be that age by exposing themselves during daylight hours. They just don't. And so working with those time frames, like you're saying, and I would agree with you from what I saw too. Probably the 8th through the 13th was great for action. Seeing deer, all the stuff you would expect during the rut, the lip curling, the chasing, the breeding, all the stuff prime time that you expect. And you're just like, okay, where's that 4+ year old deer at least, or you're hoping for a 5+ year old deer. But when you have just a little 3x4 basket rack, probably a 3-year old that's doing the rutting, something's off. But that's just kind of part of it, right? I mean, with all these units across the West, and from what I've seen and heard, not only from my hunts, but talking to you and other buddies, like it's been pretty mixed results on finding mature deer. Some great bucks been killed, and then pretty slow in a lot of other areas for quality for the age class. So yeah, it seems like just a mixed year based on populations and whatever units have age class. You're going to find something to probably shoot, but other than that, pretty tough.
Yeah. Yeah, it's definitely been the case here in Montana, hunting with my dad, my daughter, a little bit for myself. One of my backpacking trips, yeah, the bucks just aren't there. It's like, you can backpack in and grab all the vantages where normally you'd see a bunch of different mature bucks. And yeah, the age class just isn't there, So yeah, that's definitely the case in some units. And then other units, due to management, due to winners, due to conditions, there are some mature bucks around. And so that's been really fun. Been chasing like the buck of my dreams out there. In fact, I'm going to head back. We'll get this podcast recorded, do Thanksgiving, had to get a little work done, but I'll head back and close out the season there. But yeah, man, oh man, it's just like it's got like 5-inch flyers off each side, just a monster frame, so heavy, just a lifetimer buck. And I kicked myself the first time I found him. He was in a sagebrush flat with about 22 does. And I was up above him about 700 yards, and it just wasn't a good stalk. But it was like, there's the buck of your dreams. Like he's rutting, like he might not be here tomorrow. Like maybe I should try to just bloody my knees and elbows and try to get in on this thing or see what I can do. But he had like, 3 does that bedded to the right on the wind side. He had a 2-point that was bedded up above. And it was one of those rut fests. I actually saw like the most giant old 3-point with a big hook cheater in there. And so it was just going crazy in there, but I was so exposed that I'm like, man, I'll just find him in the morning. There's 22 does in here. It's a huge sage flat. Nobody's hunting it. He'll be here in the morning. I went in the morning. It was crickets, like nothing there. Like they were totally gone. And I actually found that buck. I mean, I'm talking on the other side of a giant mountain. I don't know how many drainages away, 5 miles is the 5 miles, walking or maybe more. And I was just sitting on some does and another big sage flat. And here comes that double sticker buck unmistakably from like the other side, like where he shouldn't even come from. Like he's gone all the way around the mountain, and he showed up to rut the does that night and got a good play on him. Man, oh man, it's like, worked into bow range, and he actually, it's weird because he's not just hanging with a group of does tending him. He is just working through hundreds of does to look for that one that's hot. Like he came over the hillside with his tongue hanging out, and just like he had no water, no food, just breeding. And he was like looking for these hot does, and he found a hot doe, and that's how I got on him. But then I guess she wasn't ready, and he left her to go get into 5 other does along the side. And I couldn't stop that buck like for anything. I grunted at him twice. I snort wheezed at him. He stopped for like just a couple seconds, but I couldn't get drawn and settle my pin, and he was off to the next does. So, I mean, it was a really fun encounter, but it's just wild the country they can cover, man. And I really learn a lot like you do, like with mature bulls and mature bucks, when you get a chance to find them and hunt them like that. It's pretty wild, their behavior.
Yeah. And like you said, it just reminds me of a big old bull elk, like what we were describing. And it's amazing how far they do and can travel overnight, like insane. And talking to a buddy down here south of town that hunted the mule deer unit that I had this year here. And I think he had it in 2019, so it's been a while ago. But That's what he told me too. He found this buck, one of his target bucks in the unit, and it disappeared, from his doe group. And then he found it 3 days later, and it was like 8 miles away, like 8 miles to the west. Like these old trolls that are just doing exactly what you just described. It's crazy what they can do and how much ground they can cover. Good, bull elk too, but by all means, yeah, bull elk can do the same thing.
But it's nuts. It also reminds me too, like these big bucks that I'm finding, they don't make many mistakes. Like during the rut, yes, but even no. Like it's amazing. It's a high pressure unit, and there's a lot of access and a lot of roads. These big mature deer that I'm finding, like multiples of them, they're not anywhere close to those places where pressure are. They're not dropping down to the ag. They're not going low. They are hanging in the most remote drainages that I'm having to backpack into. And, I've got reports from buddies in the area, acquaintances in and through there. They found some good deer. They found some decent deer, but nothing like what I'm finding in some of these remote places. So I really believe like these deer, and I swear I've seen like these big buck tracks, like working these ridge lines up above and working this backcountry, and they're just not making mistakes. Like, I can see people on vantage points in some of this big open country. I can see them on roadways. Like I can spot a long ways off and see some of this stuff. And there's deer over there, but these mature ones, they almost like figure out rutting grounds where they're tough to glass, where they're tough to see. They travel country where they just don't get caught as much. And so, like, I feel it could just be one season. Of course, I found it last season. That's why I've been so excited to get back into this place. But it's like, there is a rhyme and reason to where I find these big bucks, which is pretty wild, even during the rut.
Yep. Yep. No, I found the same thing, and actually locally too, talking to guys and hunting this last year where I do it, and this migration herd that we have here close to Cody, the Clark Fork, the North Fork, the Shoshone, South Fork, the Shoshone. These deer, like they know, right, the historical routes of where they're traveling out from the park to winter range, and a lot of their main trails are just over the hill from roads. They know this, and year after year, as they become educated, and some deer do die, from the road, from hunters. Of course, it's a general unit, but they figure it out. And these big bucks, especially, from what I've seen here and talking to guys, they still, even on a migration trail, and you expect to see big deer or whatever, and you don't, because they're still running at first light and last light, or just cruising the migration route nocturnal. And then they bed up during the day. I've found it before in the past, not only on Todd Helms hunts that we did a couple years ago that was on the migration route, but these bigger, older deer, they just know, and they keep it nocturnal. And a lot of this stuff is completely remote stuff as well. If you get back in there, completely remote, you might see some horse guys in there or something, but these older big deer tend to not migrate during the middle of the day, like especially on bluebird days, I would say. But it's all nighttime and morning and last light, even in some of the most limited units.
Yeah, man. Yeah, that's so wild. Well, and I find it with bulls too. It's like they like certain drainages where they don't get pressured, where they they kind of have their rutting grounds or their way that they move around pressure, where they just don't get caught in those easy to get to spots, easy to see spots. But yeah, the mule deer, it's been front and center for me, and it's wild. Then I got that chance at that sticker buck, and there was another really good buck, and it was a rut fest in that sage draw, and there was another one that probably wasn't a shooter, but he was getting there. I mean, it was a really dark, heavy buck, probably a 4-year-old, like a nice one. So it's just this rut fest in there. Show up the next morning at daybreak, all this effort to go back, sleep in the teepee, and start at 4 a.m. to get to this spot by daybreak and grab the vantage on there, and just crickets. It's like all the does are around, couple smaller bucks, but that whole rut fest and all 3 of those big bucks that were big shooters, they're gone again. They're somewhere else on the mountain again. And so it blows my mind, man. The rut has taught me like so much this year. But yeah, it's been fun, man. I've hunted nearly all of November, unless I'm butchering a deer or unless I'm in a truck behind a windshield, which is been an absolute riot and learned a bunch. And yeah, I definitely had my spots where I didn't turn them up or it's been tough hunting, but man, they sure are tough to kill too. God, they're switched on even during the rut. You got to beat the does, but they'll leave those does in a heartbeat if they feel like they're in danger. In, you know, a lot of these younger bucks, or, you know, a lot of bucks over the years that I've seen rutting are so rut crazed, you know, and maybe they're a 3-year-old or maybe a 4-year-old, but they just don't know better and maybe hang around a little bit too long. But these big bucks, they just don't mess around with it, man. It's like the moment any danger, anything, it's like they're out of there. It isn't worth it for them. They'll go find another doe.
Yeah, and it's, you know, probably we've had this discussion before too, but a big mule deer buck is probably the hardest thing to kill in the country, especially with a bow, like for the reasons that you're describing too, and the public land hustle as well, right? I mean, just like what your experience was, you find a giant, and you know that odds of locating him again, you know, the next day, let alone day after day, are probably slim to none. And so you're just going to the playbook and like, okay, how can I scratch something out to try to make this happen? Because this is probably my chance. And I'm either going to kill this deer or I'm going to blow him clear out of the unit, clear out of the country. And that's where it does pay to be aggressive, and where most people like will look at a situation and be like, oh, there's not enough cover, or I don't have a play. But let me tell you, I bet you can find something if you look hard enough when it comes to cover. And I bet, like you said too, let's bloody some knees a little bit, some elbows and knees. I bet you can make it happen if you really look hard enough. And I think that's what'll set you apart and perhaps get you that opportunity that you're looking for on a buck in a situation, or a bull that, you know, the next day they could be totally gone. And knowing the habits of the species that you're hunting is so important too, because you know that they could be gone. And maybe you're hunting a private ranch and they've seen this buck hang around there, and you have a little bit more controlled situation. But I know you're the same way, Brian. If we're on public and we see a good deer or a big bull, because of all the factors, we are going to do everything in our power to scratch out a stock and make something happen if it's at all possible there to make.
Dude, you're so spot on. Yeah, it's definitely made me, you know, I'm already aggressive and I'm always looking for a play. But yeah, it's you know, losing that buck and not getting a play at him that one night when I thought he'd be in that sage flat just killed me. It's like the buck of your dreams, and you didn't even try, and you had enough time and you sat back, and you know, it worked out. I found him again and got a good play on him. But even the play I got, it wasn't like this perfect scenario. It was like pretty much belly crawl against the sage, and he had a doe up on the ridge, and I'd have to wait till they were looking away, and then I could get in this little bottom draw and then get up to him, and then it was a pretty good chance at him. But yeah, you have to be aggressive. And the buck I arrowed, I ended up arrowing that big lopside buck. He was really heavy and old, and he was actually took the place of where the sticker buck was. The sticker buck was rutting a doe there, and I got to where the sticker buck was. You know, like just this unconventional play of like coming up the draw and coming over the sage flat and catching him. And that big, I called him beach ball. He just looked like a big beach ball with his horns. They were kind of round shaped or whatever. And he was there and rutting a doe, and he bred her like 4 or 5 times in front of me. But he was just like so preoccupied, but they just got over the slightest of sage hills where it was like just gave me a chance wide open, hardly a blade of grass. But you know, they got over that rise where he couldn't see me and able to get into 55 yards and put a good arrow into him. And you know, that was like the buck I killed, or so far like the highlight of November. Like arrowing that buck, you know, was pretty awesome. But yeah, like you say, bulls and bucks, you better make a play when you find them, because they probably aren't going to be there the next day. You got to be a bit aggressive on them and try to make something happen. And you don't want to be reckless, but you're kind of riding the fine line, it seems like a lot of times.
Yeah, yeah. No, that's a good point. I was going to bring that up, is like the fine line between reckless and making something happen. And I think as you become a little bit more seasoned, you've done it enough. And like you said, like we've all been there where you find a buck or a bull. 3 years ago, I found a giant bull, probably 390s. And it was like the first day, it was like the first 2 hours of the hunt. And it was kind of in the afternoon. And you're like, oh, like, I, I mean, he's killable, but I don't want to just go rush in there. Like he's close to the boundary. And I was like, and so I hesitated, right? And then I never saw that bull again. And so sometimes if especially if you've done it a time or two, if you have some years under your belt hunting, sometimes you don't think, you just do, you know. And it is hard to turn that on sometimes based on the situation, but if you can identify a couple of the factors that you need to be in your favor, whether it's the wind or the cover, like I did have. And if you have a couple of those, then you kind of roll the dice on the last variable to make this happen and see what you can pull out of your butt, right? I mean, and so we've all been there. And I know I have, I know you have. And we've all been there, and it makes us better hunters. It does. And like you said, you did get an opportunity on that buck the next day, and you eventually killed a buck, which I want to hear a little bit more on the details on that. But yeah, I mean, still, I beat myself up if I miss an opportunity like that. But usually, if I find a really big buck or a bull, I'm gonna go all in if I have like a variable, if I can identify a variable that's in my favor. I just need something. I need the wind, obviously, to start. But if I have just a little bit of terrain to work with, or that buck or bull's down in a cut, I can just run over there and make something happen. But like you say, I mean, there's situations where with like this buck, 22 does. Are you kidding me? That's so many eyeballs. Like that's hard stuff. So if you don't have like an identifiable easy route to that buck, trying to get through 22 does, if you don't have like a windstorm or a blizzard that you can belly crawl up to this thing with all those does around, it's going to be tough. It's going to be tough to make happen. But
I was looking for anything, a draw,
anything,
go around him, come up the timber. Like I was getting pretty creative, like a crawl the whole way, like just anything I could do to get close. And even the play I got on him was a bit dicey. I mean, he was up above me and I had a wind like kind of coming up and at him, but to the right. So I just hedged my bets and went right. And it's like, well, it's gonna blow, it's to the right side of him as long as I keep right of him. So I just hedge my bets and then get up there and relocate him and try to find him and try to make a play. But yeah, man, it's been wild. It's also been wild to like just my tactics of finding these things. Like I love master vantage points, but you get a feel like if they're gonna show up or not. And I don't know. I just use such a mix and match. Like I think every spot dictates how you hunt it, whether you're hunting it from a master vantage point, whether you got to do a mobile vantage point and go walk through it and glass as you go, whether you got to use a vehicle to go to different points throughout a section to be able to view a bunch of different spots in a short amount of time in the morning. But it's like, man, every spot is so different. And I'd love it if I just had like one tactic that worked for me. But the truth is I don't. I like watch a vantage point and then I go over in the basin that this giant sticker buck is in, is this huge sage flat that I don't really have that great of a vantage point on. I kind of got to hike into it and then glass it. And then, when I couldn't turn them up, sometimes just going on a walkabout for me is like went on this huge 5 to 7 mile walkabout after already doing 5 miles in the morning. So I'm already up to 10, 12 miles for the day. And then I got to hike back to camp. Like it's going to be a 14, 15 mile day. And on a walkabout, I'm going to bust some deer along the way. I can't be perfect. I can't move slow enough to glass every spot. So I always say you got to bust a few eggs to make an omelet. Like sometimes I just like gonna bust a few deer to hopefully see that buck before he sees me. And usually I'm targeting like some good rut grounds, another good vantage point that I'm hiking to, but I'm hunting along the way. But I tell you, Dan, like sometimes it's a master vantage point that turns them up. Sometimes it's just a walkabout for me and I'll just go walk into him. And like that time, I mean, I walked all the way on the other side of the mountain and there's my dream buck comes over the ridge and another sage rutting ground over there where it's just like, where in the heck did he come from? But sometimes I just got to go walk into him too.
Yeah, and it sounds like we're just winging it out there, right? You're kind of winging it, and that kind of what it is just you're feeling it out as you go, and if you're doing something, maybe it's a master advantage and it's not producing, you're not turning anything up. Sometimes that's all it takes, and I would rather be lucky than good any day, because if you're hunting right and you're doing a walkabout with the wind in your face, you'd be surprised. I mean, but I think a lot of us would be surprised on what you can just stumble into on a walkabout with the wind in your face. And so, yeah, it's just that's the part of it, is being versatile, right? And just feeling it out and just trying all these different angles until you make something happen. That's boom, that's Western hunting right there in a nutshell.
Mm-hmm. Well, you got to be sharp as you're doing it. You really can't lose your focus. The moment you do, you bust a buck. And, I busted a great 170 plus inch deer coming out of that spot. And it wasn't that I wasn't looking or I didn't expect him to be there. I expected him to be down in the willows and down in the thick where I'd been glassing deer. And he was on the wide open ridge, bedded with some does right there down below me as I was hiking out. And I busted him, and it just kills me. It's like, I hate busting deer, but boy, you sure have to like keep your focus. But you're right. I mean, I am winging it out there, but I'm also using this skill set of where I'm winging it to. And last year, that 182 I killed, I went to the master vantage point. I didn't see a good buck off there, and it's like, well, I got to do something with my day. It's snowing. It's a great day to be hunting mule deer, and so I made a track to another vantage point, and right before I got to that other vantage point, I spotted this buck bedded, and then made a play on him and able to arrow him. So it's like, it can come together that quick. But I know, like, yeah, it's tough. I don't want to take the lazy way. I want to put effort in, but sometimes hiking around isn't the right choice either. Like, you should sit on the master and sit there all day, because that's where you're going to turn a deer up. It's like such a feel and instinctual, what you're going to do and where you're seeing deer, and how you should play it. And sometimes, like, knowledge and sitting behind your glass is the absolute best play. Like, the spot where I killed my buck, I had this giant ridge that was like a high point, and I could glass like 1 to 5 miles out into all these draws. And there was deer out in these draws, but they would really disappear in bed for the day, and they'd get up periodically or get up mornings and evenings and move around. And so from this master vantage point, like, man, you could just see so much that you could really play the game. And it really didn't make sense. Like, I'd go down for stalks and I try to pick out vantage points while I'm down there, or I'd hunt a draw because I'm already down there. And you just couldn't see enough country to like turn up deer. Like, you turn up maybe a small buck or maybe some does, but you couldn't see the numbers or see the big whole picture to see where that big buck was rutting to make a play. And so, like, my tactics in that place started to change, where it was like I was having to hike to these master vantage points or these lookouts, but I really didn't want to leave those lookouts unless I saw a buck I wanted to go for. It didn't make any sense. And so, just like I'm saying, like, every piece of country lays out different how you have to hunt it. And it's like this problem solving that you're working your way through, and you don't always make the right calls. Like I say, I busted that great buck hiking out the other day. I was so mad at myself, but it's just the way it goes. I just didn't glass hard enough when I got up there. I was glassing the willows in front of me, kind of focused on the wrong country, and he was right there bedded with some does, So, but each piece of country is like solving a puzzle, and I think that's what I like about it as well.
Yeah, that's bow hunting, right? Is that you're solving each piece of the puzzle, and with deer and elk too. They say you find them where you find them, and so you build these expectations in your mind where you think you're going to see a buck or a bull, right? Like, oh, that looks bucky down in there, and you're like, your brain tends to gravitate towards these spots where you think subconsciously that a buck or bull should be, and then you find them where you least expect it, or you bump them. Like, we've all been there, absolutely. And so that's a good reminder. Just that right there for me, it's a good reminder going into country to really look over everything and try not to have expectations where you're going to see a buck or a bull. And a lot of times it is predictable, right? Like, where the cover is, where the feed is, it's fairly predictable. But on, certain species, mule deer in particularly, they blend in so freaking good. And like a bull elk, okay, let's be real, pretty easy to see. But, once they get laying down there in that deep sage and you got a bunch of cows in there, and you don't look it over too close, you might scan it for like if it's 1,000+ yards out, and it's easy to pass over some elk in deep sage if they're laying down. So, take a few minutes and really look things over, and deer just ramp it up another 10x, right? Because not only do they blend in so well on their feet, especially this time of year, if there's no snow on the ground, then they're laying down. I mean, talk about the hardest of hard to spot. And this last week, I got a few days of whitetail hunting in too, slinking around the river bottom and rattling in bucks, and we had a great time. And my camera guy, Tim, he has, let's just say, he doesn't have perfect vision. And for him, he can see elk or like black bears or whatever, like fairly easy. But like when you're in the river bottom with all this brush, it's all brown, and then you have a brown deer that you're trying to look for. Talk about hard to see if your vision isn't perfect. And so we were joking a little bit. I mean, granted, we were mostly just seeing little deer, but he ended up shooting an okay one with a rifle. But I was like, all right, that's it. And next year you're gonna get your vision dialed, because especially for these whitetails, because they're so hard to see. And the same goes for mule deer. It's just a whole nother level of difficulty to spot the darn things.
Oh man, 100%. Yeah, it is a skill set. Well, and you kind of get used to looking for color, shape, and size. But yeah, they're so difficult to spot bedded down to where you don't know how long you have to look at a spot to make sure that you've covered it either,
Yeah.
Yeah, that's it's so true, man. And I've also noticed like just the mindset with it as well. Like even hunting this really good spot that I've developed, and I'm seeing some really big bucks. I'm not seeing them every time out. I'm not seeing them every day. And there's a lot of times like I just caught myself a couple times like starting to second guess. And when I located that big buck, like I located a rut fest in there, but I got in there early afternoon and I'm kind of hiking in there and I'm not sure if there's anything gonna be there. And I just find my mind starting to wander like, where's my next hunt? Where am I gonna go tomorrow morning? Like it's real easy to like lose focus or lose confidence in a spot before prime time. And same thing in another rutting ground where it was like I got there, saw a few does, see a few animals, and it's like, oh, there's no big bucks here. Like, gosh, should I just bail and go totally back to this other drainage before dark and see if I can turn up a big one? Or, like I find myself like almost in this mental struggle, or this mental back and forth with myself of like having confidence in the spot I'm hunting. And after locating good, it's like you play the hand you're dealt, or you've decided to hunt this drainage, like give it all you have until dark and really look like you're going to find one in there, even if you're just seeing does, even if you're just seeing a small buck. Like pick that thing apart, sit there till dark, move to a different vantage point that shows it off a little better. Like I have a sage flat that you can kind of glass from the bottom, but you just can't see it. You're just seeing like these little tiny pieces and parts. And I know it's a big rutting sage flat. And so it takes another effort of 500 feet to climb to the top to grab the good vantage. But once you do, it unlocks like all the deer in there. And all of a sudden there's like bucks rutting around. But my point is like, even with experience, even hunting a bunch of mule deer, even hunting these great spots and turning up good bucks, I still find myself struggling with the mental game of like continuing to like give it all I have when I choose an area and hunt that area for the evening. And it just reiterates like, man, you just the grass isn't always greener on the other side. You chose this spot for a reason. Hunt this spot as hard as you can. Give it all your focus for that night. And then once you get back at camp, now figure out the next morning of where you want to go. But I just think it's an important piece of this of like, as you're hunting, is to not always be thinking about the next spot. Or if you're not seeing deer, don't lose confidence or faith in it before the right time. Like, give it its due justice, hunt your hardest in there, and then let the cards fall where they do, and then pick up the next day and figure out where you want to be. And that goes for deer and that goes for elk. And even like you were saying, elk are tough to glass, but elk can be in the trees, and they can be in the trees at daybreak, and maybe you just miss them. There can still be elk in that area, but you really gotta hunt and give it your all and believe in the spot you chose and have confidence in it, and then regroup after that hunt. But it just reminded me of that, like hunting this season.
Yeah, no, that's good information, and it kind of reminds me of a spot that I was looking for mule deer in a few weeks ago. And this country, it's so broken. There's all these cuts, there's all these ravines. I've seen deer in there before, and you're like, okay, how long do I really spend in here before I move? Because it's, number one, it's such big country, but there's so much topography, and you're like, okay, I probably can only see 30 to 40% of this stuff anyway from this vantage point. So just because you're not seeing a mature deer, I mean, it means nothing, right? Unless you've spent some real time there. And so it's a good reminder, and identifying these areas, like, okay, how much of this area can I truly see and truly be effective at covering this, maybe from one or two different vantage points. But absolutely, you have to be calculated before you throw in the towel on a spot, or just move because you're not seeing what you expect to see. And a testament to that is I spent an evening in there, and I saw a couple does, which I was like, there should be more in here than this. And I'm working off some past intelligence from buddies that have hunted it before, so I know there should be some deer in the area, and it's a huge area. But I think by, like, a morning, an evening, and another morning, I felt comfortable that, like, okay, we can start looking at some other stuff and maybe some other areas, because I've seen a fair amount of deer. We found a couple different doe groups. They had young bucks with them. It's you're all these factors that are flowing through your mind. It's November 10th. The rut is here, and then you factor in, like, okay, how long are these deer on their feet? They're bedded down by 9:30 in the morning. So maybe after 9:30, I've felt like I've seen everything that I'm going to see that's on their feet, at least till maybe noon or early afternoon. If there's some bucks that start cruising around looking for hot does during prime time, you just never know what's going to happen, right, during the peak of the rut. And then evening time on their feet again, and kind of moving from bedding to feeding areas. And so you go through the process, right, of feeling this country out and spending those hours with your eyes out there on the glass, and before you decide to move. And like you said, every hunt, every drainage, every mountain is different, and you're going off of feel, and you're going off of how much cover is in there, and then of course a food source. And that was another thing that I keyed in on, was, this is desert sheep grazing country, and there's a fair amount of cheatgrass out there. But that cheatgrass, the fresh shoots coming up, the short green stuff. And over the years, from guiding to just hunting, if you get a rain and there's good time, the timing's right in November, those fresh green shoots of cheatgrass start popping, and those mule deer key in on it. The does do, because that's what they're going after. And so that made it a little bit easier for me, because you have this massive sea of wild grasses, the prairie grasses and the sagebrush, and then you have these patches of the very light colored cheatgrass, and then that's where you're seeing the mule deer, is in these light patches of cheatgrass. So that makes your life a little bit easier when you have that contrast. You're not dealing with any snow on the ground, and you have these dark deer on this light grass. That really makes the glassing a little bit easier, and kind of gives you a clue of what these deer are keying in on as far as a food source goes. And that can change everything, right, on a hunt, is figuring out a food source and keying in on it, and then basing your glassing around, when are these deer feeding on their feet before they're bedding. And it's, for me, pretty mild weather, it was first light and last light. So just a situation like that are things that you got to key in on to make that next step of finding that big mature buck that you're looking for.
Yeah, it's smart. I like the morning, evening, morning. I may have jumped around a little too much in some early spots, but I also found myself glassing off one of my favorite master vantage points and only seeing 2 bucks and 2 does and all this country I could see. I just kind of knew it was empty. Another clue is the sign, like really paying attention to the tracks. And it seems elementary to pay attention to sign, but big bucks leave big buck tracks, and usually the big buck tracks, you'll see the dew claws in the mud, and depending on where you're hunting them, 3 to 4 inches, but you can tell what a big track is in your area of a big mature deer. And also you can see the doe tracks. And so like in some of these spots, in Montana where there weren't as many deer, really keying into those tracks and starting to grab vantage points where I'm seeing more sign, all of a sudden I start turning up more deer, and so like I think you pay attention to that. I loved your like giving it multiple times on the vantage points. There was times where I was playing vantage points where I'd give it a prime time morning, but just like you said, like factoring in how much of the country can I really see? And these deer were really drawn to the bottoms of these draws where they really disappeared. I'm only seeing half of them. Like you say, it seems like a master vantage because I can see a ton of country, but really I'm seeing 30-40% of it. And there's a lot of country that I can't see. And what I ended up doing is jumping around and then coming back to that spot because I
Yep.
knew I hadn't seen all the deer in there. And it's like, okay, it's been a couple days. Let's see if the rut fired up. We'll go back to this spot, look in the evening, and kind of mapping out all these master vantage points and then jumping around to them. But yeah, I think factoring all that stuff in really pays dividends in finding these things and finding them consistently. And then, you go for another evening and you turn up deer and bucks. Like I was seeing different bucks every time I was on that vantage point. And a lot of time not seeing the same ones, where it's like, man, how much can I really see of this country the way they're moving around? But yeah, it's been a real challenge, but it's been fun, man. The muley rut's fun, and it does remind me of hunting bull elk, like that aggressive nature of making plays and making stalks. And those mule deer sharp. I had a buddy that got into range and just stepped on a little bit of gravel, and all of a sudden that buck turned up and looked at him, and the gig was up. And another buck worked into him in bow range where he was totally concealed, and the buck came in, and it was just bad luck where the buck came in, bad wind. He came over top the ridge and came in. He was a great buck, came into bow range, but then stopped behind a tree, and then the whole situation blew up on him. And so they're just not easy, and they can really frustrate a guy, but you keep after him and keep trying to turn him up. But it sure is a fun time of year to be out there, man. And I think dialing in your gear as well for the cold, like it's a different style of hunting than hunting bull elk. Like in September you can have a hoodie and a vest and you're good to go. But I tell you, I have everything I own on. I have my puffy pants, and then I've incorporated some different layers. And then when I'm stalking these deer, really making sure that I have all the clothing on so I can move slow, controlled, like so I can wait for a buck to get up if I have to. Because if you just bring a sweatshirt and a vest and maybe you feel fine hiking, but then you stop moving and you're sitting there waiting for a buck to get out of his bed, you will freeze and be too cold to shoot your bow by the time that buck gets up. So just some little tips, some things that kind of change for me in November for sure.
Yeah, another thing I want to bring up too, as you were talking about that, is what a game changer for me too, for deer especially, are those image stabilizing binos. And I know you roll with those quite a bit. And I don't always roll with them. I like my range finding binoculars, but for these deer, it definitely took the detail that I could pick apart country to the next level. And so I found myself, with the Zulu 6s, the SIG range finding binos, when you have like complete stability, like tripod stability, you can see detail so much better. And when you're looking for a brown object in a brown habitat, it makes all the difference. Elk are pretty easy to pick apart off a landscape when they're up feeding with any glass, whatever it is. But deer, with those range finding binos, make it so much more easy. And then on some of these master vantages, when I'm looking, beyond 1,200 yards with that new Oscar 6, that the image stabilizing spotting scope. And my camera guy Timmy calls it the pirate scope. He's like, "Oh, you got your pirate scope?" But you're standing out there with this image stabilizing spotting scope, and you're picking apart the sagebrush and the draws in the base of these cliffs from, I mean, geez, 1,600, a mile to 2 miles out on 30 power, and you're actually doing effective glassing with this image stabilizing spotting scope freehand. Pretty amazing. And when you're looking for that much of an animal that's so camoed in and so blended in, that was a game changer for me for glassing up deer, were those image stabilizing binos.
Yeah. Man, I absolutely love them. Yeah, I think it's one of the biggest game changers out. So stable optics for picking out deer. So you can bino up your
Yep.
tripod up your binos and you can get a stable image and that works. But yeah, those image stabilizers are so good. And I've actually stepped up. It's like you bring up a good point, Dan, is like having your optics kit. And you can get by with 10 by 42s and a spotting scope, and that's all you need. And you can get by and spot deer. But yeah, putting together my system for glassing deer, and I've actually made a change. I have been running the 12 by 42 image stabilizer, and they're the version 2. I actually stepped up to the version 3, running the 14 by 50s and running those on my chest rig. And it's taken a little bit to get used to the fine focus and making sure I'm glassing up close, but I'm picking out more deer with those things. And then you're right, like knowing which optics to use. Like a lot of times you could have a 10 by 42 and then have 16 buys in your pack that you pull out when you're sitting on a good vantage. And then knowing in the morning or evening you're panning through openings with those binos, but then like middle of the day or later morning, I've been pulling out the scope and looking long distances and picking apart the bedding terrain and just really picking apart country. And it's turned up bedded deer for me that I wouldn't have seen any other way. And so, yeah, like really using your optics kit and having a good optics kit built for deer makes all the difference in the world, man. And yeah, I've leaned on mine so heavy here lately, and really fine tuning it. Like I say, go into those 14s, and next time I think, I'm backpacking into this spot. I can pretty much see everything I need. Like I may even ditch the spotting scope and maybe just run the 16 buys in my bino harness just so I can keep light, because I've got to pack a teepee and a stove. Like it's big mountain wintertime camping. I've got to pack a hatchet to get through my pond to get my water. And so like I've got to pack all this gear, like tripod and a scope is just fairly heavy on top of that, and so I won't make it back in there if I've got to have a 55 60-pound pack to get in there and all the clothes you need for late season. So I may ditch it and go with those binos, but you're having your kit dialed for where you're hunting and where you're glassing from is so crucial, man.
Yeah, and especially for deer, it's just you just have to be just that next level up of paying attention to detail and picking apart country, just a little bit more so than anything else because of how stealthy they are. And I think I was running the 18s,
Ooh.
And I think they make a 20 by 50 as well, don't they? The version 3,
14, 16s, and 18s.
and 18s. Okay. And so, I mean, talk about like picking apart detail. And like you said, yeah, I mean, within 300 yards, it's pretty close. I mean, it's like you're really looking over every blade of sagebrush and blade of grass, and it's easy to miss something. But for that distance, that detail, and I thought about it too, and I used them during antelope season too. But for just on the fly and cutting weight in the backcountry, it's a game changer. And where you're not having to, pick apart every inch of a buck or a bull, with a spotting scope. The downside is it's a little bit easier to get some good quality digiscope video on a spotter on a tripod. But if you want to cut some serious weight, you get yourself one of those higher powered image stabilizing binos and essentially replace your spotting scope at a quarter of the weight, right? And that's a game changer when you're ounce counting and you're hunting the backcountry.
Yeah, like it always depends how far you're looking, but I've found now both of my buddies are using the 14 by 50s, or both the buddies I hunt with a lot, and I'm using them as well. And I just noticed 90%, 95% of the time, I can tell what I'm looking at. There's only this rare time where I'm glassing distant terrain, the one spot that I told you about, the master vantage point, where I'm looking great distances and I'm looking for bedded deer middle of the day. Yeah, spotting scope. You need to have it for that place. But some of this like backcountry stuff I'm doing, 95% of the time, I can tell what it is with the binos and cut the weight of that scope and get in there and be more effective. So yeah, the optics kit and where you're hunting, it's really important. And it seems like it's a different decision whether you're hunting elk or deer or what power you're going to go with. Like I just find myself like really having to think about it and be intentional which glass I'm going to bring. And sometimes I bring too much. Sometimes I got the 12 buys in my chest rig, I got the 16s in the pack, I got my spotting scope, I got my tripod or the pirate scope like you're talking about. I ran that this year too. But yeah, sometimes I bring too much glass and then I don't use it for where I'm hunting. And I'm like, oh, that's stupid. I brought 5 pounds of extra glass. But it is like each place you hunt kind of requires a different kit or different optic to optimize for sure.
Yeah, and we're spoiled, right? I mean, there's so many of these optics at our disposal in 2025 that we can really gear ourselves toward specific styles of glassing. And there, you don't have to have a do-all bino anymore, which, I mean, it's good to have, you know, a 10 by 42 pair of binos by all means. But man, you can really dial in your optics in a niche fashion to really give yourself that next level up of just preciseness, and just vision is pretty crazy, and usage and cutting the weight. So man, we're spoiled. It's almost too easy nowadays for the gear that we have at our fingertips.
I wish it was too easy. I'm still struggling out here. But yeah, no, you're right. We are really fortunate for all the gear we have. And, you know, we don't have an optic sponsor for this podcast. And so, yeah, we really like the SIGs. We're drawn to them. But my buddy, he kind of runs a different approach. Like, you know, everybody has their own hunting styles. And he's really using his vehicle a lot and hiking to master vantage points, but he's running a new BDX 95 Swarovski with the double eyepiece.
Yeah.
So it's a 30 power, and then he's looking through it. And so he's just leaning a little bit heavier, like on these vantage points and glassing. And then he's using those 30 by binos, and it's about a $5,000 setup for one of those things, you know? And I feel like I can see the same with the spotting scope with varied eyepiece and be able to zoom in and look at spots. But, you know, he's using this thing and turning up deer and good deer. He's killed a couple bucks this year. And like that's really working good for him. And his style of hunting, he's just kind of catering more towards those big masters like that and really working hard to get there and then living on those and looking at it with his big glass. So some of those big glass like that BDX system, like the Doctors, like there's some guys that really utilize some of those giant binos that are like a 30 power, like a spotting scope. Now I do like a spotting scope because I can zoom in, and that SIG one is like 27 to 54 power or something like that, or 20 to 60 power on a lot of spotting scopes. So you can zoom in and get a little bit better look way far. But I don't know. I think those giant binos, you know, have a place as well. It would suck to pack that thing around, man. I think it's like 8 pounds or 10 pounds of glass, or I think that Brady from Go Hunt, I think he's running the 115 Swarovski BDX. Man, that thing, you gotta be tough as nails to be able to pack that thing around. I'm not sure what the weight of that thing is, but you know, there's other pieces of glass too that guys are utilizing that are turning up deer and elk for them as well.
Yeah, comfort's a huge part of it, right? When you're spending all these hours behind glass, whether, well, just open country in general, I would say, whether you're Wyoming down to Arizona, there's a huge advantage of not having to do the old squint with your eye at the spotter, you know, when you're scanning at distance. So like you said, the BDXs or any good high powered binocular where you can use both eyes and scan in comfort for hours on end really make all the difference.
Yeah. Yeah. My buddy down in Arizona, of course, they're hunting coos and mule deer a bunch, but he had made a special mount and then put two spotting scopes that he mounted side by side. They were both 60 mil objective spotting scopes, and he mounted it so then he could use it like binos, and he turns up a lot of good deer. I find with sometimes those optics is you're always looking far and you kind of miss some close stuff, but I'm going to be hunting with my buddy Dan down for Aoudad, which is real open country, a lot of long looking, and he's going to bring that setup. So I'll be able to look through it a bit and just see how we're able to utilize it down there. But I also think too, you have to be good at looking around for animals without your glass too. So many times you pick up movement or you pick up animals with your naked eye. And so you can glass till your eyes bleed, but sometimes you're kind of like looking too far off and you don't like look what's right in front of you. I know for myself, like how many times has one of your cameramen spotted out a bull or a buck because you got your eyes in the glass and he's naked eyed. And so I spot a lot of my animals that way too, of like glassing around and then just giving my eyes a break and then just like looking right around me. Or as you're hiking, you're kind of looking at the spots around you and may pick out a deer. But I think there's something for the naked eye as well, looking for animals as you're hiking or as you're looking around. Sometimes that's how I spot animals.
Absolutely. You never underestimate that, and using your ability and using your attention to detail. And like I was joking with my camera guy too, because his vision's a little bit soft at the moment. But having LASIX in 2018 has been a total game changer for me. I used to wear contacts, and astigmatism, you're dealing with that. And so you get blur, especially with contrasting light and whatnot. But now with that LASIX, like I can see a friggin' gnat on the back of a deer's head. At least that's how I feel like I can see when I'm out there hunting, and just able to pick apart that detail, especially within like 100 yards, just like really being able to see. It's one of those things that I do not take for granted is really good vision, because I've been on the other side of that for so many years as well. But yeah, that's why I say use those eyes, buddy. Use those eyes, because it's your most powerful tool is when you're just still hunting through the woods or still hunting through the sage and picking things apart with your naked eyes.
Yeah. So you had the LASIX. Did you have close vision, and so your far was blurry, and then you had LASIX on both eyes and fixed it for far vision? Is that right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Just like I had like 20/60, so it wasn't great vision at all. And so nothing extreme or anything, but they go in there with that laser and they reshape your cornea, because your cornea isn't like perfectly round. And so those lasers zap off the high points of your cornea and it just smooths everything out. And I mean, it's kind of freaky, the experience, but gosh, I know there's a 1.5% failure rate with those things. So you're gambling a little bit. It ain't guaranteed, boys. I can tell you that. Say, Doc, don't screw this one up because I only got one set. He says, well, I'm going to do pretty good as long as you don't move. So talk about not moving a wink when you're under that laser for LASIX, because you don't want them to mess up. But
Holy cow.
It has been the best thing I've ever done, for sure.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah. So as I start to get older, they tell you in your 40s, you start to lose your vision. And so, yeah, it's like one of my worst fears. I've always had really good vision, and my far is still good. My close is still good. I don't need reading glasses. I can still read everything. My dad's the worst with my tape, with his tape measure. I know if my cuts start coming back wrong, he doesn't have his reading glasses on. But yeah. So I take eye supplements, and then they actually have a new drop that, like, if you first start losing your eyes or losing your close vision, you can take these drops, because I guess it's actually like your focus in your eyes. But yeah, and then doing drills, 20 minutes of screen time, and then you need to look up and look at far stuff for a while. So you make sure that you're not looking at screens all the time. But man, I'm super cognizant of it. I try to take really good care of myself, and I don't take it for granted, because I know like having good vision just means the world to me. And you start losing your close and you have different problems with like pin blurriness, shooting your bow, seeing your sight tape. And so it's got I can't be putting my reading glasses on to see my sight tape to shoot a buck. And so that's just not going to work for me. So I'm trying to hold on as long as I can. So yeah, I'm 45 now. I still have great vision, but yeah, I'm definitely thinking about it, taking supplements. I'll look into those eye drops if I start to lose my vision. But yeah, it's definitely, you pick up movement so well too. That's really what you see on the hillsides. You can pick something out of place, like you're saying, with crisp vision, but also just picking up on that movement. A lot of times I'll pick up movement of a Tweety bird or anything. Oh, I did. We were talking about funny stories last time. I was walking with my red light to get around on a buck in the middle of the dark. Man, something hit my head so dang hard, and it was a bat trying to get my red light, and I didn't realize it at first, and it swooped on me a couple times and hit my head in the middle of the dark. I finally realized it and turned my headlamp off, but yeah, it was trying to get me in the dark there. It was pretty wild.
Holy smokes. Did it attract some bugs or something? Or was it just attracted the red light, you think?
Yeah, just the red light. There's no bugs. It was 20 degrees out.
Oh, yeah.
It was freaking out on my red light. Yeah, I really thought it was a bug or something trying to get me, but yeah, it hit me in the head a couple times before I realized what was going on. But yeah, man, it's been fun November. It's always fun to get together with you, especially when we've both been hunting to talk about encounters and big deer and big bucks. So big deer and big elk, and they do have so many correlations and things. But yeah, man, fun podcast, fun talking to you.
Absolutely. Another good one. I can't believe an hour's already up. Jeez.
Yeah, that was a good one. We want to thank on today's podcast Everly Stock Packs and Matthews Bows. So we've both been using that E-mod system. It's been working great this year with the Brooks bag. That's a great system. And then that new Matthews bow, man, that thing's a shooter, huh?
Yep. The arc got it set up, and took a couple bulls with it this year. So yeah, super easy bow to set up and just an extension of your arm. Just, we're so spoiled, talking about gear again. We're so spoiled at the quality of gear that's at our disposal these days. So yeah, I mean, all good things to say about that new Matthews arc.
Oh man, it's great for me, a short draw archer, getting so much performance out of that thing. It's just crazy. And then yeah, just absolutely dead in the hand. And I think it's the best aiming bow I've ever owned. So yeah, super cool bow. If you're in the market, just go shoot it. It's a great bow that R&D team has just outdone themselves over there at Matthews, especially the last few years, and especially with this bow. It's just a crazy good one. So yeah, go check that out. And yeah, check out everything we're doing at Eastman. So thanks, Dan. I appreciate you, man.
Heck yeah. Let's do her again.
Okay, will do. All right.